In this video, I will teach you how to prepare for earthquakes thoroughly for yourself and your family. I will walk you through important stages of preparation. One is the resources that you need to put in place before an earthquake happens. Second is what are the actions you and your family need to take during the earthquake itself, which can last from seconds to minutes. Third is exactly what to do after the earthquake. Let's go through the first one first of preparing before an earthquake. This actually takes up the most part of your preparation. Before an earthquake happens, you need to consider how to secure your home and, if possible, also your workplace if your employer allows. First is to identify and anchor heavy furniture. This happens especially for bookshelves, cabinets, and large appliances such as TVs, which can fall and injure adults and children during an earthquake. You should consider using wall brackets as much as you can and also straps to strap down heavy furniture. Second, consider fasten water heaters and gas appliances. This will prevent them from tipping over when you properly secure them. Third is to store breakable and hazardous materials safely. Therefore, keep your glass jars, chemicals, and heavy objects on the lower shelves with guardrails. Next, reinforce weak structures of your house, especially if you have the budget. Consider hiring a professional to assess your building's earthquake resistance. Now, a surprising thing during the recent Myanmar earthquake is that a lot of countries around the region, like Bangkok, they are not very much exposed to earthquake, and therefore a lot of the buildings are not built according to the earthquake building codes. If therefore in your country, if you are not sure whether your structure is sound in an earthquake scenario, considering hiring a professional to assess and reinforce if necessary. Next is to identify a safe spot in every room. Your bedroom, your kitchen, your study room, even your basement. This will basically help you to check and identify the areas that are safe for hiding and taking cover in the event of an earthquake. Also, make sure that the pathway within your house or your workplace is clear as much as possible. This will prevent obstruction that could hinder evacuation in the event of an earthquake. Let's look at this picture. So you see a bed frame here. That's basically a hollow space under the bed frame. This is identify a secure and safe spot that you can hide and take cover in an event of an earthquake. So go through every room of your house to see whether secure spots can be identified. Now, when you look at this picture, you basically think of water, which is for drinking, as well as other things you will need like food. Therefore, the next step is to assemble an emergency kit that will ensure your survival for yourself and your family in the event of an earthquake. Include the following items at least. Now, most people will recommend a 3-day supply, but from my awareness, sometimes resources getting help to the ground by the emergency personnel can take many days. Therefore, instead of having a usual 3-day supply, I would recommend a minimum 7-day supply. 1 gallon per day per person would be sufficient. Second is consider storing non-perishable, easy-to-prepare items like canned food and protein bars and dried food. Canned food usually will be quite protected in the event of an earthquake because of its storage container, which is made from aluminum. Third is to prepare a basic first aid kit, include bandages, antiseptics, pain relievers, and essential prescription medication for yourself and your family. Also include medication for your pets if you have any. Next, include flashlight and extra batteries because in an earthquake scenario, power outages are common, but you still need light to move around at night. Therefore, you should have a reliable light source. Flashlight can be supported by batteries or by solar panels if you have any. Very important is a whistle I will recommend a whistle at least in every room, because if you are trapped under the debris, the last thing that you want is to waste your energy, your limited energy, to shout for help. Therefore, using a whistle will help you to signal for help for a longer period of time without using up too much of your energy. Next, also consider having a portable phone charger. A power bank or solar charger will help you to maintain communication between yourself and the outside world, including surrounding towns or your family members within and outside the town. When you look at this picture, you are reminded of your important identification and travel documents. Therefore, we will recommend that your emergency kit will also include emergency cash and emergency important documentation. We'll recommend you to keep copies of your identification card, your driver license, insurance policies, and emergency contact of family members and friends. Next, include extra clothing and sturdy shoes that helps to protect you from the debris and harsh weather condition. You'll also need some basic tools and supplies. A multi-tool, a duct tape, and work gloves for minor repairs and protection will be important. Next, also include basic toiletries like toothbrush, baby supplies if you have young children, and feminine hygiene products. This can be very hard to access and get during an emergency. When you look at the map, it basically shows you the location of, for example, your town. One of the things that is needed for everyone to come on board within your family and close friends is a place for meetup. I'll recommend basically an open area. So if you can identify a park one or more open space parks near your house, for example, you can let this know to your family. So in the case where building collapse and there's no place to hide, or no place to meet, the next best place will be an open space that everyone can easily reach, like an open park. Therefore, it is important to create a family and workplace emergency plan. Key steps include designate a safe meeting point, choose an area outside your home, as well as a secondary meetup outside your immediate neighborhood. This is in case when your immediate neighborhood is hugely destroyed, then you can have a secondary meetup point outside your neighborhood. Next is to establish a communication plan. Assign an out-of-town contact person that family members can check in with. This is especially important if sometimes communication within the town may be down for a while, but intermittent it may be up. But however, sometimes it's hard to reach individuals inside the town if your phones are out of battery. So sometimes it's good to have a secondary backup, a person outside of town that can act as a node or a hub. Next is to teach emergency contact numbers to everyone at home. You can print them out on a list and circulate to everyone. Also plan evacuation routes and identify multiple exits from home, school, and workplace to the place of meetup. This is important because routes can be disrupted by fallen buildings, or the roads itself can be destroyed by the earthquake itself. Therefore, it's important to know multiple routes of evacuation. Preferably can be either go it can be routed by walking, or sometimes by smaller vehicles like a small car or bicycle. Next, practice emergency drills with your family. Everyone may sometimes know and read up, but they will forget what they read. So it's important to practice the exercise, and so that everyone can remember what they need to remember. Now, when you look at this, you're reminded of a gas meter. A lot of people don't know. Before an earthquake, it's important to learn how to shut off important utilities, because earthquake can damage gas lines, electrical wirings, and water pipes, leading to further risk. The interesting thing is that some people are not killed by the immediate 2 to 3 minutes of earthquake itself, but they are actually killed, for example, in the aftermath of gas explosion. Therefore, it's important to make sure that you learn how to turn off your home gas supply and keep the wrench near the shut-off valve so that you can easily reach the tool to turn it off. Second is also learn how to turn off and shut off the main water supply, because water pipes can be broken during the earthquake and can easily cause contamination around your house or your town. Third, sometimes a lot of people doesn't know that power lines could be down, or your wirings in the home could be damaged by the earthquake with exposed live wire. Therefore, you need to learn before the earthquake happens how to locate your main electrical breaker and understand how to switch off safely. You should learn to teach this to all adults at home. Next, never attempt to turn the gas back on by yourself. Always wait for a professional technician, because gas leaks, there are different types of gas leaks. Some gas leak could be detected by the smell, but some may not. Therefore, gas leaks, if in the event that you're not sure, evacuate the area first and check for a professional technician. You can keep the contact of this professional technician in your emergency contacts if you need to reach him. It is important to practice earthquake drills, and one of the important things is to learn the idea of drop, cover, and hold on technique. This important 3-step technique is important to all adults and children at home. During the sensing of the initial seconds of the earthquake, immediately drop to the ground, because when an earthquake happens, basically you are being shaken. You might fall down, especially for the elderly and young children. So must immediately drop to the ground to prevent being knocked over. Second is look for a sturdy furniture and against a strong interior wall and take cover. Third is to hold on to a secure object until the shaking stops. If you are taking cover under a strong table, you can hold on to the table legs itself under the shaking stops. So this concept of drop, cover, and hold on, everybody at home must know. Regularly conduct drills at home, school, and workplace if possible to reinforce preparedness. Now, when you look at this video, you're reminded of the interior of the house. So the next important thing we need to know is if you are indoors during an earthquake. So we have now moved to the second stage. During an earthquake, if you are indoor, what do you need to do? You should immediately drop to the ground to prevent falling. Alright? Because if the furnitures are shaking, the ground is shaking, drop to the ground, take cover, and then hold on to something steady. Now, because windows, mirrors, and heavy objects that could shatter and fall is going to cut you or injure you, stay away from them. If you are in bed, you can take cover under the bed and cover your head with a pillow to buffer against any knocks and shock. Now, Although the initial reaction may be to run outside, the strange thing is that a lot of times falling debris from building pose a greater risk. So for the initial stage, if you're indoor, preferably is not to run outside. If you're in a high-rise building, expect fire alarms and sprinklers to activate because this is how the building is being protected. Don't be alarmed and practice as according to the drill. Now, if you are outdoor, whether you're walking, exercising, then you have a different scenario. During an earthquake, please move immediately to an open area that's away from buildings, street lights, trees, and power lines. The reason is because power lines, trees, and street lights may collapse and injure you, and buildings can also collapse and debris can injure you. Drop to the ground and then cover your head and neck because these are your vital parts of your body. And beware of falling objects such as debris, glass, and utility poles. If you happen to be driving during an earthquake, you need to do something different. Pull over to a clear location away from overpasses, bridge, and power lines again because, as shown in the recent Myanmar earthquake, bridges can completely collapse. This can happen to overpasses and power lines. So you should pull away over to a clear location. Next, stay inside with your seatbelt fastened until the shaking stops because your vehicle can act as a protection shell. Avoid stopping near buildings or structure that could collapse. And if you are near the coast, be prepared for a possible tsunami. Now, some countries are better prepared at this than others, like Japan. So they may sound alarm for tsunamis that might be incoming. However, some countries are less prepared for this. So regardless of whether an alarm will be sound, be prepared immediately to move to higher ground where you can be protected from possible tsunami tidal waves. Also follow evacuation routes posted by local authorities if any. Now, if you look at this picture, this is an area that has been destroyed by earthquake. After an earthquake where the main shocks have sort of settled down, it is important to check for injuries and assisting others. Administer first aid to yourself first and others if necessary. Remember the first aid kit that you prepared before the earthquake. Now is the time that you can use it. Avoid moving seriously injured unless they are absolutely necessary because if you are not trained, you're not able to assess how bad is the fracture or which part of the organs are deeply injured. So you may need to wait for other people who are more trained in first aid. Now, only for life-threatening conditions should you call emergency services because at this point, it is likely that the emergency services line are flooded with calls. Also, avoid bringing people with light injury to the hospital because the hospital are likely to be overwhelmed or the hospital could be deeply damaged. Only if it's life-threatening condition, then you try to reach emergency services. Also, need to impact the damage and hazards within your house, so check your home or your workplace for structural damage before re-entering. If you happen to have a helmet, that would be very much helpful as well as a protection for yourself. Gas leaks. If you detect gas or you hear a hissing sound, that's where the skill you learned before the earthquake come in. You can now apply how to turn off the gas and evacuate. If there are water leaks, same thing. Shut off the water supply if you notice flooding. Electrical hazards is sometimes very much unavoidable. But if you suspect a down power line in your neighborhood or near your house or within your house, shut off the electricity if you suspect damage. Because gas leak is suspected, do not turn on any electrical switches or lighting matches because this may trigger an explosion. Also be mentally prepared for aftershock, which can cause additional damage. Therefore, do not re-enter the house if necessary because aftershocks might be either close to the initial shock magnitude or could be lesser. Very important, a lot of times after an earthquake is to assure loved ones and friends that everybody is safe. Therefore, it's important to stay informed and communicate. The battery-powered radio that you have prepared before the earthquake will now come in handy because you can now listen for emergency updates either from the authorities or from the police or the emergency services. Try not to call using your phone during this period because it is likely the phone network is overwhelmed. Now, sending text messages will at least allow the text messages to route or at least be stored at the telco until it's ready to be transmitted again. Follow official instruction from authorities and emergency responders. Now, regarding text messages, I will also emphasize a technology called Meshtastics. If you have the ability to invest in a Meshtastic device before an earthquake, now is the time to use it to send messages out using the radio waves. So they will still work even if the cell network is down. Now, usually after the earthquake, authorities will decide whether evacuation is necessary, basically due to the possible routes that's out of the zone, out of near the epicenter, as well as the resources available to help with the evacuation. So if your home is unsafe, move to a designated emergency shelter near your area, bring along your kit and essential supplies, and notify your family members of your location and status. Now, when it comes to the aftershock, a lot of people have a lot of fear. They do not know how long it will continue to happen. Therefore, expect it so that you will not be surprised and remain vigilant. Move to a safe location if your building is structurally compromised and follow the same safety procedure as with the initial earthquake. Avoid entering buildings that have sustained damage until they are inspected. We have come to this end of this presentation and I hope you find the video useful. Subscribe and like if you'd like to see similar presentation on emergency preparedness.